Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tina Holler, and I'm a health and wellness coach, and I help my clients realize their goals by making them uniquely designed for them so that we're balancing the three pillars of health, the emotional, the mental, and the physical, making sure that they are really realizing true health and not just one component of it. And I'm so excited to have with us today Annie Lalla, which she's a relationship coach, a love coach, and many people have quoted or have said that she is the #1 love coach in the world. So we are so happy to have her here with us. She grew up in Canada, so being from Canada myself, she has moved to the US. She's now living with Evan Pagan, who's another a high-level coach who is a marketing coach. And so I've had the opportunity and the fortune to be able to work with the two of them over the last 14 to 18 months. So it's been, very transformational in my own life, from an emotional level, which Annie has helped with me with, and Evan from a business level. So it's very exciting to have you here with us, Annie. And I thought we would start off by just give us a little bit of a story. How did you become a love coach?
How did I become a love coach? Okay, let's see. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. I love talking to fellow Canadians. And to be honest, I've been a love coach ever since I can remember, ever since I was a kid on the playground. I remember managing relationships between my friends who were fighting. And as I got older in high school, I remember people would have drama with the guy they had the crush on or boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. They would always come to me. And even though I wasn't doing it professionally, I actually was an IT consultant in the phone telecoms world for about 18 years. So I was in the sort of software world. The reason that I was actually any good at my job and got my projects done is because I was very attentive to the business people and the developers, and I was kind of managing the relationships between them. I would always talk to people about what was going on in their home life and their romantic life, and people just liked me. So it's interesting. I've only been a professional love coach and relationship coach for the last, I'd say, 15 years. But before that, I was still doing it. I just wasn't doing it professionally. So in some ways, this is literally my dharma. This is what I came here to do with my life. And whatever job or practice I've ever had, this has informed it heavily. But at some point, I saved enough money from doing IT consulting, and I just moved to New York and said, you know what? I'm a love coach. And so I had a friend who did weight loss um, coaching. And after her clients would work with her and lose some weight and get healthier, and then she'd send them to me for me to help them find their partner and their soulmate and to build relationship skills. So we worked together for a while. And now I'm a professional love coach, and I work with a full portfolio, and I teach coaching, and I'm definitely doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So any way I can support your people in understanding the dynamics of emotions and relationships and the influence on health, I'd love to answer your questions.
Yeah, like that's one of my biggest questions is how are our emotions, how do our emotions keep us stuck or sabotage our health efforts, our health goal efforts?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I've learned from just studying the interplay between longevity, health, energy, and relationships is realizing that any feeling that a human being has that they don't know how to breathe through, how to assimilate, how to experience. Okay. If you don't know how a feeling comes up and it's too overwhelming, you can't cope. What do? We tend to act out in some way to avoid a feeling, whether you reach for a cigarette, a glass of wine, um, a video game, or some other substance, or some habit. Whenever you're reaching out to do something to avoid a feeling, you end up reaching out for something that is just, um, it's like a crutch. It's like something that helps you numb the feeling or avoid the feeling or disassociate. So I look at anyone who's got any compulsions or addictions. If I look at that client closely and we dig in what's under the compulsion or the addiction, we'll usually see that there's some ancient feeling that is too scary or too overwhelming that the person doesn't know how to handle. And when that feeling comes up, They go, oh, I don't know how to handle this. Reach for the medicine, reach for the drug, reach for the substance or the experience that allows them to check out of their body and go somewhere else and basically disassociate into another realm, which works short term, for the hour that you're having the smoke or the drink or eating the ice cream, you feel fine. But long term, you don't actually feel more proud of yourself. You actually end up feeling ashamed of all those tubs of ice cream and the cigarette and all the drinks that you need to feel calm. And so what I'm trying to always help my clients do is learn the technology of feeling a feeling and breathing into what's coming up in their body, tracking the feeling in their body rather than the story about the feeling. So they might feel a feeling come up, but they have a story about why it's happening or who did something wrong or shaming or blaming yourself or someone else. And that keeps you out of the sensory experience of the feeling, which is the only place you can feel a feeling. You can't feel a feeling in your mind. You can only feel it in your body.
Right. So having said that, emotions is something that we really have to work on if we're ever going to, meet that goal that we desire, because otherwise we're just going to sabotage ourselves and throw us right back to where we started, with those emotions coming up all the time.
Yeah. And famously, people act out in the form of eating unhealthy food. I mean, food as emotional coping, it's a pretty rampant pattern in our culture. If I feel stressed or scared or sad or overwhelmed, I reach for comfort food. And often comfort food is not a kale salad or celery sticks, right? Comfort food is like pasta and sugary, fatty things that give you a quick rush of the sort of drug-like endorphin, but then it's followed by a dip in energy and a cost to your health. And emotional eating is, I think, probably at the root of a lot of excess weight that people are carrying. And
Right.
people keep on weight for many reasons, right? We originally have fat to keep us warm. But whenever you have more fat than you need in your life, it's often because you're buffering yourself. You're literally protecting yourself from people or situations or emotions that make you feel unsafe.
Right.
And until you're safe in your body, the fat's going to stay there. Anything that's not, healthy for you.
And that's why people continue on the hamster wheel of spinning around and round and not really getting the results that they want, because they haven't dealt with the emotional side. They're just it's like a Band-Aid, right? They're just putting a Band-Aid over top of it and hoping, they don't have to think about it the next day, but the next day it's still there. And so they're just kind of going around in circles.
Yeah. And the weight is not the issue. The weight is a symptom of the deeper issue.
Exactly.
So what is the deeper issue? We want to look at that. It's almost always emotional. There's almost always an emotional underpinning to unhealthy eating habits and low self-esteem and kind of despairing, hopeless kind of mindset. And so if we can look at the underroot, the unfelt emotions or the pains or the traumas that are taking us out of our full aliveness, and think about shame. I've noticed that shame is one emotion that highly influences how people relate to their body, their weight, and their eating habits. And I want to differentiate between the pleasure that comes from eating a whole bunch of pasta and ice cream, because there's definitely a rush of yay that happens in our body. So there's definitely a pleasure, but it's a counterfeit pleasure. And I'll show you why. When you do something that's good for your body, like when you eat a nice, healthy kale salad, I'm just picking kale salad today. The version of you in the moment that's eating it feels good about it. You feel proud of it. Okay. No, I don't think anyone feels ashamed of eating a healthy kale salad. No one feels ashamed. Now, you don't get the drug high from the pasta meal, but you get a deeper endogenous pride in the choice that you make. When you eat the pasta or the ice cream or the French fries or whatever that gives you the quick drug hit, you get a sense of pleasure, but it's not a long-term pleasure. It's a counterfeit pleasure. And so I tell my clients to imagine themselves on a timeline. There's the current version of themselves here in the present moment. There's a future version of them, like an hour from now, a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. If you think of all those future versions of yourself, and you're about to eat the ice cream, the whole tub of ice cream, you just kind of check in with all those future versions, an hour from now, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. Look at them down the timeline and see, are they thumbs upping? Are they saying yay as you about to eat this whole tub of ice cream? Or are they like, we're not really sure that's the right thing to do? See, the version of you in the present moment is thumbs upping the ice cream, but all the future versions, they're not clapping for that move. If you, however, are eating some, steamed vegetables and a kale salad and some healthy food, not only is the current version of you clapping, but all your future selves are clapping for you as well. So that's the way to distinguish between real pleasure, long-term, sustainable, deep pleasure that is amortized across your whole life versus in the moment, instant gratification, quick pleasure, which is counterfeit pleasure, like you get from a drug high, like literally like cocaine or heroin. It gives you a burst of pleasure, but at the cost of your self-esteem and your long-term pride in yourself. And so we want to distinguish between the short-term instant gratification pleasure and the long-term sustained respect for yourself.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that visual of saying, okay, it's not just about the now, it's about, okay, all the future selves. Like that really puts it into perspective. I like that.
Yeah. If you do something that all your future selves are clapping for, it's usually the right thing for your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you talk a lot about reinventing yourself, right? And, when we're losing weight and we're meeting our goals, we're really reinventing ourselves. We're becoming a new us. And one thing I've noticed in myself, but I've noticed also in my clients that, we'll get to the goal that we set for ourselves. Say we want to lose 10 pounds, we get there. But then we sabotage ourselves to throw us back again, because what I've discovered is it's more about the mental side. It's like we're not ready. We don't see ourselves as that new person yet. And so we do something to kind of throw ourselves backwards because we're not ready for that change. We don't know what to do with it. Can you speak to this?
Yeah. So I think real transformational change happens at the identity level. So when we just do something new, our friend comes over and says, hey, come try this thing for me. Come ride on a bike ride with me, but you never ride bikes. But they push, 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 and you go on the bike ride and you're like, okay, I'm Annie, who is a couch potato, who just went on a bike ride with my friend. But when you start to shift at the identity level, where you start to see yourself as a fit, exercising person, then your whole identity now, what does a fit, exercising person do? Someone who's focused on their health. They do things like bike rides, walks on the beach, go to the gym, look for opportunities to take stairs instead of the escalator, because they're pro fitness. When you have an identity shift, all the actions and behaviors that flow out of that identity come naturally and easily. Mm-hmm. But if you have an identity as someone who, I don't do exercise. If you tell all your friends, oh, I'm not into exercise, I don't do exercise, you're literally brainwashing yourself into an identity that doesn't do those things. You might do it once in a while when your friend forces you to, but it's not going to flow freely from your daily behaviors and habits. So as coaches and as influencers, we want to be working with someone at the identity level. And Reinvention, there's actually a course my husband and I teach called Reinvention. Reinvention is the inner and the outer game of transformation. It's where you no longer speak and think about yourself in a particular way. You have a new way of speaking and thinking about yourself. And oftentimes we have an identity that just got left over from our childhood and our work experiences. But to create a designer identity, to think about, well, who would I want to be? If I could design my identity, would I want to be someone who's focused on health, exercises, pays attention to the food I eat, surrounds myself with situation and people and circumstances that add to my aliveness rather than to my contracted, closed downness? And when you start designing a life based on who you want to be rather than just who you happen to be, then you start to take more control over those experiences and those outcomes. And, I think a big part of my work, even as a relationship coach, is helping my clients design who they want to be from scratch based on their dream outcomes. And, even if you design a dream outcome or a version of you want to be, I have to help build a bridge from where they are now to who they want to be. And that bridge making is, the work that we do for our clients.
Right. And making sure that everything's in alignment is very critical too, because if you're trying to do something like try to follow the next biggest fad and and it's not resonating with you, or it's not something that you really want to do, again, you're going to sabotage yourself. So you have to
Yep.
make sure that whatever changes that you're willing to do are going to be in alignment to what you believe in and your true self.
And your values. When you say
Yeah.
alignment, you mean the behavior and the outcome has to be aligned with your values and your beliefs. So we got to figure out what are those values and beliefs. And in some way, when you talk about sabotage, it's kind of a shorthand for sabotage means the thing that I want that I sabotage is not yet coded as safe to my nervous system. So I treat it like it's unsafe. And so I push it away or I undermine it. So what we have to do is find out what about that doesn't feel safe and how can we make that safe for you. Once it's safe, you don't have to train a kid to go towards safety. Nobody has to be taught how to do what's safe. We automatically do it. So what we have to do is find a way to help the direction that we're helping our client get to feel safe to them. And so the alignment is about aligned with the values and the beliefs of the client, and maybe sometimes shifting the values and the beliefs. Sometimes my clients have values and beliefs that they just inherited from their parents and they never actually looked at and go, do I believe this? Do I really believe just because I got an ice cream cone every time I got angry or sad and my parents would give me an ice cream? Do I really believe that ice cream and sadness should be conflated? And if I could design it from scratch, what would I connect to sadness? Maybe going for a walk in the park and sitting with my feelings is going to be more useful than getting an ice cream. Oh, and I just inherited that habit or that belief from my childhood. If we can spot those patterns, we can interrupt them and create a pattern that's actually more conducive to the life we want to create.
I love that. So that's how we can kind of break these unhealthy habits, is by just becoming very in tune to them, into what we're doing that's not serving us, and saying, what do we want instead? What would serve us
Yeah.
better?
Or even just noticing the habit. I mean, if you just notice that you got a stressful email and it really got you frustrated and you started thinking about what's in the fridge and, oh, there's some cake left over. If you just notice, I got stressed, I got scared, I reached for cake in my imagination. This is before you even get up to go to the fridge. If you can watch your mind, you will catch the pattern. You don't have to stop the pattern. That's one thing I really want people to learn. You don't need to stop, change, or will a different behavior. If you observe what's going on internally before you even take the behavior, reach for the cigarette, reach for the ice cream, think about the cake. If you watch it, your mind will go, oh, look at that. Stressful email equals cake. The reason why we go and grab the cake and it feels unconscious and we're like, why am I suddenly eating cake? I don't even know why. We don't even track that the stressful email caused a feeling of upset and scaredy feeling come up. We don't know how to feel that feeling. So we're disassociating and opting out of the feeling by going to eat the cake and getting a false sense of like endorphin pleasure.
Right.
If you watch the pattern while it's happening without shaming it, without trying to change it, like literally, I could feel the stress of the email, go and watch. Oh, I notice myself getting out of my chair. I'm walking to the fridge. I'm grabbing the cake. And I don't stop myself from eating the cake. I'd eat the cake and I go, wow, this cake is helping me feel better from the stressful email. The fact that the pattern is now obvious to you and in your conscious mind, it will organically change. You see, for a pattern to stay alive in your compulsions, it has to be outside of consciousness. It has to be a secret. You have to not notice that the stressful email connected to the cake eating, and your brain hides from you these connections. If you start observing the pattern in real time without making it wrong or shaming it, and you just observe the pattern with journalistic neutrality, like, oh, I notice myself doing this and doing that, the pattern will change naturally and organically at its own pace without you having to do anything. All you have to do is watch the pattern
Right.
I think of like Jane Goodall with her chimpanzees. She'd sit in the jungle and like take notes. Oh, here's this happened, and then they did this, and then they did that. So be your own internal Jane Goodall and watch how your emotions influence your behavior without stopping the behavior. Do the
Right.
behavior, but you'll stop over time doing the behavior the more you watch the connections. And it's a much easier way to shift a pattern without shaming or blaming yourself.
Right. So it's really about being
Exactly.
mindful of your actions, being your own detective
Yes,
of your patterns and stuff.
exactly.
So yeah, that's really good. So one thing that I teach my clients is, when they feel dysregulated, to pause and take 3 deep breaths,
Mhm.
and until they feel like their body has regulated again. So that tool would actually be a good tool to use when you're about to, do something that's not going to serve you, like grab that chocolate cake or grab that, beer or whatever it might be for you. It might be a good interrupt that people can do. Do you have any other techniques or any other tricks or that you can do to kind of stop the pattern?
Yeah. And I just want to highlight, double click on this idea that we reach for unhealthy patterns and compulsions because we're dysregulated, which means scared, triggered, upset, frustrated, sad, overwhelmed. We get
Right.
dysregulated, which means our nervous system is out of whack. It's frazzly. It's not calm, balanced, and regulated. We get dysregulated, and then we use things like food and other substances to regulate ourselves. It's like self-medicating. Instead of
Mhm.
taking a chill pill, we have ice cream, but it's doing the same thing. And then you create a dependence on the chill pill or the ice cream. Oh, I can't feel calm unless I have ice cream in the fridge. Oh, I can't feel calm and dance on the dance floor unless I have 5 drinks. So then you have all these crutches that you need. You're not independent anymore.
Mhm.
So same with relationships. Most of relationship drama happens because one partner doesn't know how to regulate their nervous system, and they're basically asking their partner to do or say or be something so that they feel safe. And this makes sense because when we were kids, we wanted our attachment figures to help us feel safe. But then we grow up, fall in love, and then our new attachment figure, our romantic partner, we think it's their job to make us feel safe, but it's not. It's actually our job to make our body feel safe, which means learning to regulate our nervous system. So this is the mark of an adult, is feeling scaredy, angry, or upset, noticing you feel the feeling, and then going, it's no one else's job to make me feel better. It's actually my job. That's the beginning of becoming an adult. Once you realize, oh, it's my job to make me feel safe, then you go, well, how the hell do I do that? I don't know how to make myself feel safe. And then you start getting curious and interested in meditation and breathing techniques because these are the people who have researched the different tools and techniques to help your body, your nervous system feel safe. The easiest one that I've ever found, and all yoga teachers and meditation teachers will tell you this, is to use your breath. Conscious, intentional breathing, where the exhale is longer than the inhale, is the easiest tool in the book. So the easiest one I know is 5 breaths, deep inhale, deep into the lungs with a long exhale. I tell my clients to try and have their exhale around twice as long as the inhale.
Mhm.
It forces the conscious mind to come back from crazy paranoia land or worry land, come back and start counting. Now I have to do double length. So it gives the brain a make busy project while you're breathing. Breathing intentionally, not the unconscious breathing that we do every day.
Right.
Intentionally breathing with a long exhale is the fastest way to get your nervous system to feel safe. There's other ways. There's as many ways as there are imaginations, but I'm going to give you the ones that seem to be the easiest. So there's also one called havening that the Rudin brothers invented, and it's putting your hands across your chest on the opposite shoulder and then stroking your shoulder and your arm on the outside down to the elbow
Mhm.
about 10 to 20 times, kind of like a self-soothing, self-petting exercise. It releases waves of relaxation in the body, and it's
Mhm.
touch, and touch often softens the frazzled nervous system. There's also, I've heard people literally just leaning forward, like hanging forward with their head and their arms touching the ground, like
Oh,
it's
okay.
flopped forward. The blood rushes to the head and kind of brings you back into your body. So that's a simple one.
Okay.
Any grounding exercise, like literally, we've all heard, put your feet flat on the ground,
Right.
push your feet into the ground, wiggle your toes, anything that gets you into any of your five senses: touch, taste, sight, hearing, listening to music, falling into a song, going for a walk, exercise. Exercise famously changes your nervous system from
Mhm.
scared to regulated. So, any grounding practice that grounds you to the earth, sometimes you can imagine a cord coming out of your root, bottom of your spine, down to the bottom, down to the ground of the earth, to the center of the earth. And then imagine that you're connected now to the center of the earth. What this does is it has you, instead of feeling like free floating and disassociated, you're connected to something bigger than yourself that is
Mhm.
holding you. And so when something else is holding you, you can feel, okay, I'm not just going to float away. I'm tethered. So grounding, breathing, tuning into either one of their five senses, going into your body through dance, stretching, yoga, exercise. These are all ways that you can experiment with and find one that's easy to do in a few seconds when your family is driving you crazy. Notice which one works. Literally, just 3 breaths is better than whatever you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Those are all amazing. So I learned a few today, so I'll be sure to be using some of those.
Yeah. And then
So,
there's the classic tapping,
right.
EFT, and there's all kinds of trauma modalities, but basically anything that gets you into your body or your breath and out of your mind spinning stories
Mhm.
with justification, explanation, blame, shame, make wrong. Any narrative means you're not regulating. If you're in a story where there's someone who did something bad and wrong, or there's reasons or explanations, the minute you hear yourself talking words like that, you are not regulating. You're actually ramping up the story stronger in your head.
Right. Yeah, and that speaks to like the mindset, like the limiting beliefs that are constantly swirling in the back of our subconscious mind when we don't even realize they're there.
Yeah.
They're so stealth-like in the back of our mind, subconscious mind, that but it's dictating our move. It's dictating what we're doing.
Yep, absolutely. 90% of our life is run by our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind's got its hands on the steering wheel of our life, and our conscious mind is in the passenger seat going, oh, here's a story about why we're driving in this direction. And that story is made up after the fact to make sense
Yeah.
and to justify, but it's not the reason. The reason is ancient and it comes from older situations in your childhood.
Awesome. So, is there anything else that you think the listeners would benefit from? Any more wisdom that you have?
Around the connection between relationships and emotions and health? Is that the
Yes.
main thing?
Even relationships. I mean, if you are in a toxic relationship, that can really affect your health.
Totally. I mean, I'm going to go as far as to say that disease and addictions and compulsions are all from repressed emotional states that are not given the chance to be experienced in the body. There,
Hmm.
there's it stunts us, and literally, I've heard cancer described as repressed rage.
Right.
And I
Yes.
have cancer in my family history, and all the people who got cancer are basically a bunch of women who didn't honor their frustrations and their anger. They didn't learn healthy, skillful ways to express their frustration and their anger. They repressed it, and then it just shows up in their body in the form of a tumor.
Hmm.
And so that's definitely anti health. And then there's people who have a lot of shame and guilt that they're running around with that's maybe not even theirs, but it's from their parents that they took on.
Right.
And that can show up as heart problems and disease. And so you want to start looking. I literally choose my friends and the people who I spend time with and relate with. I choose them with surgical precision because their emotional states and their ability to regulate and be an adult influences who I become. Whoever I hang out with, I become more like.
Right.
So I I've trained my family how to regulate. My daughter, who's 8 years old, well, 8 years old now, she will say, Mom, let's all regulate together. Let's take a breath. I've trained our whole family system that taking a breath when someone's losing their shit is the most intelligent thing to do. Not talking it out, not trying to solve the problem. Because 3 regressed triggered nervous systems trying to solve a problem is like 3 kids trying to drive a car. Like, it's just chaos. You got to get all back to the grown-up state. Taking deep breaths or regulating your nervous system or grounding is literally time travel. You're time traveling back from your regressed self, where you have no tools or resources and you can't cope. You're time traveling with your breath to the present moment where you have tools and resources, and you can solve a problem, but not if you think you're 4 years old and humiliated or terrified. So yeah, choose your relationships with surgical precision. And you can't choose your grandma or your mom at this point, but you can choose how often and how much you interact with them, and only interact with people, friends and family, the frequency at which is healthy for your nervous system,
Right.
not how often they want to hang out with you. If I saw my dad every day, he would drive me crazy and I'd hit him. If I see my dad once a week, I think I would just think he's amazing and love him. And if I saw him any less than that, I'd miss him. And there's a optimal frequency that suits you for you to feel a deep connection with that person. You manage that frequency so that the relationship stays optimized.
Right.
And also with relationships, oftentimes there's one partner that's more committed to health than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And in my relationship, it was actually my husband. He's been trying to have me eat vegan and healthy and for years. And I was like, I'm skinny. I don't need to eat healthy. I can just eat pasta and I still look good. But I wasn't thinking about my longevity. I wasn't thinking about, well, how long am I going to be alive in this body? And it wasn't until we had some health scares in our family system on his side and mine that we really were like, oh my God, we found each other. We're in love. And he said to me, like, I don't want to control your eating, but I just want you to be alive and in love with me as long as possible and with our family. And when I realized, okay, I could just eat, or I could eat to live healthy, high energy, and as long as possible, so I can be with my husband and my daughter. Once I realized that health had to do with how long I'm alive, not just with weight, but how long and the quality of my life, then I took it way more seriously. And now I eat mostly vegan, vegetarian, low fat, low carbs, no sugar. When I took it on for myself, for my reasons,
Right.
his reasons, the reasons he was giving me was like, oh, you can avoid this, you can have that. He was giving me all these sort of scientific reasons, but it wasn't until he looked into my eye and said, I just love you and I want you to be alive as long as possible so we can be together. And I want our daughter to grow up with their mom as around. Now, those are my values and those are my reasons. And then I came on board.
Right. Yeah, that's golden. I like
Mhm.
that. Awesome, Annie. I'm so happy you came on to talk to us. You have so much wisdom, so much intuition, intellect, and I always am mesmerized listening to you. So I do appreciate you coming on and being with us.
Yeah, it was a delight. And for everyone out there who's got feelings that they're struggling with, just know that your feelings make you human. And feelings are the quintessential aspect of your aliveness. And so let go of wanting to feel happy all the time. I'm not a big fan of happy. I like it when it comes. I'm more interested in feeling alive, because the opposite of dead is alive. And alive means full spectrum of every emotion, from ecstasy and joy and excitement to jealousy, fear, anxiety, terror, the full spectrum. And if we take out any of the emotions, life becomes less interesting and less colorful. So if you can learn when emotion comes up to just go, hello, jealousy, hello, shame, hello, anger. What do you have to teach me? What are you here to show me? Because every emotion is a messenger sent from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind to deliver some insight that adds to your development. And if you don't tune into your body where the emotions live, you will never get that message that messenger came to give you. And you'll forever be stuck in the places that you're stuck in your life. So what I like to tell people is if you want to get unstuck and have success in the areas that you're struggling, tune into your body when it's having a feeling. Is it in the neck? Is it in the throat? Is it in the chest or the belly or the arms? Find where it is in your body. What color? What texture? Any metaphorical descriptions. And the more you can tune into the sensations of the feeling in your body rather than the story about the feelings, the faster you'll get that nugget of wisdom and integrate and get up to the next level in your life in whatever domain. So your feelings are literally your access point to your next level of growth.
Right. Beautiful. Beautifully said. So thank you so much, Annie. And we'll see you around soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Tina.
It's been a pleasure having you on here. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.